Hello everybody, welcome back to the Flix Files. My name's Roger. I hope you've all had a really nice month of July. I've had a pretty good one. I've just come back from a small mini break in a town called Ludlow in Shropshire, which was really, really nice. A beautiful place. It's got a really nice castle there that you can kind of walk around. It's very, very pretty. Me and my other half went down there for a few nights and we really enjoyed it. She really enjoyed it. She likes walking and hiking. And it was very good. But while we were there, I just want to mention this before I get on to the movies that I've been watching. So just bear with me for a minute or two. If you're kind of around my age and you grew up in England in the 1980s, you may remember this, but when I was a teenager in the 80s, from like the middle 80s towards the 1990s, my sort of go-to games machine, because I'm very much a gamer, I still am, was the Commodore 64. And I used to love playing on my Commodore 64. And back then, the way you found out about new games was through magazines. And there was a magazine that I loved called Zap 64. And it reviewed Commodore 64 games, and it was just such a great mag, and it was always with a sense of excitement when a new issue would come out and you'd look through it and see what games they reviewed. And they used to have a rating system where they would give things sizzlers if they were like half decent, and if they really, really liked them, they'd give them what they call a Zap Gold Medal. And I have fond memories of that magazine, and the reviewers were kind of my age. There was one in particular that was semi-famous. His name was Julian Rignall. And he was very famous for having the 80s mullet haircut. And yeah, it was just a really great mag. And I always remembered that they were based in Ludlow. And it was, while we were driving down there, I got thinking about this. And I thought, oh gosh, maybe I can visit the actual building that they were based in, because they used to call it Zap Towers, and it was mentioned in quite a few of their magazines. And I did. And for any people out there that remember Zap 64, you might find this interesting, but I'm just going to show you a few pictures of the building where they were based. At the time they were there, it was a Victoria wine shop, and they took over the 3 floors above that. But now in 2025, it was an estate agent's. And so I took a few photographs of the building, and I was very pleased to see that they've actually put a blue plaque on the building, which is something that we do in England to mark buildings that have a specific heritage, or there's something about them that's important in English history. And it was really cute that they've deemed this building of interest, and they've put a plaque on there that highlights the fact that this is the building where Zap 64 and the sister magazine was called Crash, which did game reviews for the ZX Spectrum. And it was just a really cute thing. And I thought, oh, how nice it would have been to be able to get in a time machine and kind of jump back 40 years. 40 years, my God. And be there when they were reviewing all these games, and to meet the reviewers. It would have been excellent. Anyway, I digress. I want to talk about what I've been watching throughout the month of July. And I said previously that I try and watch a movie a night throughout the spring and summer. But this month, we've kind of been preparing for a move, because we're going to be moving house. Hopefully in the first week of September. So we've been doing a bit of preliminary packing and getting things ready for that already, because I've got a lot of stuff that I need to squirrel away and get it ready. And I've watched probably about 15 to 20 movies, but I don't want to talk about every single one of them. But I've written down a handful of movies that I want to quickly mention. And I want to start with 3 newer films because I've said before that I don't tend to buy physical copies of new films unless I've seen them first. So inevitably, I have to watch them digitally in the first instance. And if I like them, then I will go and buy the physical copies when they become available. So I've watched 3 new films that have recently hit the digital platforms. And I wanted to quickly talk about those first to give you my opinions on them. And the first one is the film How to Train Your Dragon. Now, I believe that this was based on an animated movie that was released about 15 odd years ago, which I've never seen. But I've looked it up and it seems that there's a number of these films now. It's had quite a few sequels. And from what I've read, they look quite well received. But this is, from my understanding of it, is a live action version of the first animated movie. And I saw a trailer for this, and I like science fiction and fantasy. So it grabbed my attention when I saw the trailer because it looked very well done. And I bit the bullet and thought, well, I'll watch it on digital. And I really enjoyed it. It was very, very good. And I liked a lot of things about this. Having never seen the original animated films, I went into it completely as a newbie. And it was delightful. It was really delightful. And it was about sort of a colony of Vikings that live on this sort of coastline. And specifically, it's about this teenage boy that wants to be a Viking. He's sort of approaching his more formative years. And he gets sort of pushed aside by the other Vikings because he's a little bit nerdy. And he's more of a tinkerer. He works in the blacksmith with Nick Frost, the comedy actor Nick Frost. And he builds this sort of weapon that fires this sort of chain with balls on the end. I can't think what the actual term for that weapon's called, but he builds this sort of rapid fire version of that. And he ends up downing this mysterious dragon because in the world of the movie, there are various types of dragons. And one of them in particular is a mysterious kind that only attacks at night and nobody's ever really seen it before. And the basic premise of the movie is that he manages to successfully use this weapon that he's built, and he downs one of these dragons and makes it crash into some woods. And he goes to find it and discovers that this dragon is still alive. And he feels sorry about the fact that he injured it, so he sets it free. And thus begins a relationship between him and this dragon, where he trains this dragon so he can ride it like something out of Avatar. And it's just delightful. The design of the dragon is really, really cute. Terrific visual effects, really, really well-made visual effects. And the thing I liked about this film is it kind of used, I mean, I'm assuming it did, but it looked like they were in real-world locations. I'm sure there'd be some CGI somewhere. But if this was all filmed against sort of green screens and it was all pasted in afterwards, I'd be incredibly surprised because I really couldn't see the join. But it was just a very, very well-made and attractive movie that was enthralling, and you wanted to know what happened. And you really started to care about this lad and this dragon that he's trained. And yeah, it was really good. I've discovered that the guy that directed this was the writer of the original How to Train Your Dragon. So yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I've made the decision that when it does get a physical release, I'm going to buy it. So that says something. And yeah, it was really nice. If you like your fantasy movies, then I would definitely give this a go. And if you have seen the animated originals and you really, really like them, then definitely give this a try. You've probably already watched it if you've liked the originals. But to me, I was a newbie. But yeah, really enjoyed it. Great film. The second movie that I watched on streaming was the sequel to the kind of Blumhouse horror movie, if you want to call it a horror movie. It was more of a sort of thriller that came out a few years ago called Megan. which was about an android doll that kind of developed psychopathic tendencies. and I really liked that movie. I thought it was, for the type of movie that it was trying to be, it was really well made. And I ended up buying it on Blu-ray. And they've done a sequel. And I was looking at the trailer of the sequel, and it had a very heavy sci-fi bent to it, which, again, science fiction is my favorite genre. And again, I bit the bullet and thought, well, I'm going to give this a watch. And I saw that it sort of bombed at the box office, and it didn't do very well. And a lot of people think it's because the Megan robot in the first movie obviously returns in the sequel. But rather than being the antagonist in the first movie, they've made her more of a protagonist in this one. So she's more of the hero that comes to save the day. And a lot of people kind of didn't like that idea. They wanted to see her be a psychopath. But again, I really liked this sequel. For better or worse, whatever you think of me, but I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun 2 hours. It does lift from quite a few science fiction movies. There was a number of things in there that made me think of other films like Saturn III, if anyone remembers the old Kirk Douglas science fiction movie from like 1980, I think it was. There's elements of this in there. It's got touches of Metropolis, and it also lifts a little bit from Superman 3, it made me think of as well. So a very eclectic mix of films that it kind of draws from. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun ride. And having Megan be the protagonist kind of worked. And it's interesting because they don't fully dismiss the psychopathic side of her. They kind of hint at it a few points in the film. So you're always a little bit on the fence as to whether she's going to revert back to her old way of behaving, shall we say. But I really enjoyed it. It was a good-looking movie. I should imagine that this will be really nice in 4K because it's quite a colourful film. I should imagine it would really pop. So I'm debating whether to get this when it does come out of physical media. I might not buy it day one, but if it gets a sale, I'll probably pick up the 4K, is my thinking with that one. So yeah, whether you think ill of me or not, I actually quite enjoyed Megan 2.0. For the type of movie that it set out to be, it was actually rather fun, and it was a fast film. At no point was I bored in that movie. So the third newish movie that I've seen digitally is the Marvel film Thunderbolts. And I wanted to like this because the last Marvel movie I bought on physical media was Ant-Man Quantumania. And then I think after that it was The Marvels, which the look of it just really made me think, oh, no, I'm not bothered about that. And I've seen trailers for the Captain America movie, the new one, with Harrison Ford in it, playing Red Hulk. And I just thought, oh, I think I'm getting Marvel fatigue. I've had it for a while. I really should have stopped buying them after Endgame because that was like a really good end. It was a nice sort of finish to that whole arc of a story over how many movies that was. But alas, Marvel Studios keep going. And yeah, I think I've got a bit of Marvel fatigue. There were certain things about Thunderbolts that I quite liked. It's a much smaller scale of a movie compared to all the ones that came before it. I liked the first hour of the movie, where it's very much where they're trying to escape out of this complex and they have to come up with various ways to get them out of the situation that they're in. And it just seemed more confined and small scale and more character driven. And I kind of enjoyed that. But inevitably, as we get towards the end of the movie, we end up getting a little bit of a full scale sort of city battle going on with this huge black entity. I can't remember, the Void, I think it was called. And yeah, I kind of thought, oh, here we go again, another big New York thing. And yeah, so it was okay, but I don't think I'll be buying it on physical media. I think it will be another one that I'll have to add to the list of Marvel didn't buy movies. I think I've seen the trailer for the new Fantastic Four movie. And I do find that one quite interesting because I like the design of that, how it's sort of an alternate reality 1960s. And from what I've heard of the previews, it's kind of a more standalone movie. There's a few characters in Thunderbolts that I didn't know who they were. I didn't know what their background was, whether they appeared in one of the many Marvel TV series. I didn't know. But this new Fantastic Four movie is meant to be a lot more segregated from all of that. It's very much a standalone film. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what that one's like, because it also has Vanessa Kirby in it, who's quite nice. So yeah, they are the three newish movies that I've seen digitally. So one of them is a definite buy, one of them is a buy when it's on sale, and the third one is not a buy. So that's my rating of those three films. So what have I been watching in terms of the films I've got in my library? Well, I've written down 4 movies and a TV series that I binged. So the first movie that I watched, again, is Tron Legacy. And the reason I rewatched this was because of the F1 movie that's just been released with Brad Pitt, which is another film that I will get digitally when it's available, and I'm sure I'll really enjoy and end up buying it because it just looks really good. And the director of that film is a guy called Joseph Kosinski. And I've got quite a few of his previous movies, and this is one of them. And obviously it's a sequel to the early 80s Disney film Tron. And I really like Tron Legacy. I really liked what he did with this. I have the 3D version of it, which also comes with the standard Blu-ray. Well, the weird thing with the 3D version is there's only parts of it that are actually in 3D. So for about 40% of the movie, you're just watching 2D with 3D glasses on your face. So in this viewing, I opted to just go fully 2D and just use the standard Blu-ray. But it's a great film. It has a terrific soundtrack by Daft Punk, which really goes with the aesthetic of Tron Legacy. And it kind of takes all the things that you like about the original Tron and just turns the volume up. So there is like a big light cycle chase in this that goes over many levels, and it all gets really not confusing, but it just makes it more exciting. And a very de-aged Jeff Bridges appears, who I think is this was one of the first instances of a real actor being presented de-aged but fully CGI. So it does have a bit of an uncanny valley effect to it, but you kind of forgive it a little bit because this was one of the very early instances of that technology being used. But yeah, I really like Tron Legacy. I enjoyed watching it again, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing the new Tron movie, Tron Ares, I think it's called, which I believe comes out in October. So I may get to watch that digitally at some point in November, and we'll see what that's like. The other movie I watched is another film by Joseph Kosinski, which is Top Gun Maverick, simply because I think I've only watched it about 3 times since I got it on physical media, which to some of you may already seem a lot, but I've seen the original Top Gun countless times. And I watched Tron Legacy, and then I was thinking, well, what movie shall I watch for the next one, whenever that'll be? And I saw Top Gun Maverick on the shelf. Thought, oh yeah, another Joseph Kosinski movie. And Top Gun Maverick is bloody excellent. It really is. I can't imagine anyone that's a fan of the first movie not liking this as a sequel. It hits all the right beats. It's a very well-made movie, fantastically done, how they really are up there in the jets. And Tom Cruise, God love him, he really is putting all he's got into making these movies. And the fact that it's actually him flying these jets and doing the things that they do in the movie is just incredible. So we get terrific in-cockpit footage of him flying. And the script is very clean, and the mission that they're given is carefully explained to you multiple times. So when it actually gets executed in the last sort of 20, 30 minutes of the movie, you're very clear as to what they're doing, and it's all very exciting. And of course, it has Jennifer Connelly in it. So, you know, I've got such a crush on Jennifer Connelly that if she's in it, if she's in any movie, if she was in a movie that was a sort of, I'm trying to think what kind of movies I really hate that I wouldn't want to watch, but if she was in it, I would watch it. So that's how much I like her. Right, the next film I watched is very divisive, but I'm aware that there's the new Jurassic Park movie that is currently doing the rounds, and it's due to be released on streaming in a few weeks' time, I think it is, around about the beginning of August. So I plan on renting that to watch it. And I know that's directed by the British filmmaker Gareth Edwards, who I really like. He recently did a film called The Creator, which was a very, very good science fiction movie that I highly recommend. I have that on 4K. And I've read that this new Jurassic Park movie is quite mediocre, unfortunately. But I'm still going to watch it because, as I say, I like Gareth Edwards. And I thought, well, I know what I'll do. I'll watch the previous Jurassic Park movie, Jurassic Park Dominion, because I have that on 4K, but I've only watched it a couple of times since that was released. So it was kind of a refresher. And it's a very mixed bag of a movie, Jurassic Park Dominion. This was directed by Colin Trevorrow, who made the first Jurassic World movie. And it's a mixed bag because they bring back Laura Dern and Sam Neill and Jeff Goldblum, their characters, and put them in with Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. So you have a lot of leading characters in this movie, and they kind of set two storylines going. So Sam Neill and Laura Dern are on this storyline thread where they're trying to understand what's happening with these giant genetically engineered locusts that are destroying all these crops. And yeah, I think it's that thread of the movie that's a little bit out of place. And maybe they should have just ditched that whole idea and just had them with Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard a lot earlier and just had them together as a group. But it's a lot of characters to juggle. So I don't know whether it was a good idea bringing the old team back or not. But on the plus side, it does have some terrific action sequences. And there's a great sequence where they're in Morocco, I think it is. And Bryce Dallas Howard is in a van and she's being chased by, I think it's 3 velociraptors. And Chris Pratt is riding along behind them on a motorbike, and they're darting through the streets with these velociraptors. And that was really, really well done. And there's a sequence where they're in this big cargo plane that has more than a passing resemblance to the Millennium Falcon when you see them sat in the cockpit. And there's a good action sequence with that. So it has some points to it that are pretty decent. Of course, the visual effects are top notch. But overall, I think it was about 30 minutes too long, and it could have done with, you know, tightening up a little bit and maybe removing some of those threads in the storyline that were a little bit uninteresting, should we say. The next movie I watched, I've saved the best till last in terms of movies, is Jaws, my 3rd favourite movie of all time. And I think I can safely say I've seen this movie many, many, many times over the decades. I still love it. It's a fantastic film. And I'm seriously thinking that I will do a deep dive of this movie, possibly as the next one that I do, which will be after we've moved. So hopefully towards the end of September, early October, that video will come out. But I'm definitely going to do a video about Jaws at some point before the end of this year. because I watched it as part of its 50th anniversary celebrations, because I think I did a little short about it, which you may or may not have seen. But on the 20th of June was the 50th anniversary of Jaws premiering in the United States. So that evening, I watched it, because why not? It was a good excuse to watch it. And I just loved it. I just find it timeless. And when I watched it again for the second time, it made me really want to do a video about it. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And I also have the book, The Jaws Log, which was written by Carl Gottlieb, who was the scriptwriter and one of the actors in Jaws. And I read that in an afternoon. I literally sat out in the garden on one of our nice sunny hot days and just read it all the way through in one sitting. Fantastic book. Really, really interesting read. If you've not read it and you like Jaws, you've got to read The Jaws Log, because it's a really interesting account of how a movie gets made. And yeah, I love it. I was thinking, what is my favorite scene in Jaws? And I jokingly thought to myself, oh, it's the bit between timestamp 000000 to 2 hours, 3 minutes, as in the whole thing. But I think my favorite sequence in Jaws that really encapsulates what I love about it is the sequence where they're on the boat and Quint is sat in the chair, and I think Brody is trying to tie a knot in a piece of rope, and suddenly the fishing line just clicks, and Quint is eating a cracker, and he just stops what he's doing and looks at this fishing line, and you just see it go tick, and just move very, very slightly. And then Quint just slowly starts to strap himself into the chair as if he knows what's coming. And it just builds the tension beautifully. And I think this was one of the sequences that when I saw it as a kid, it made me realize what a director does, what a director's job is in terms of making a movie, that one sequence. And it's just a brilliant, brilliant piece of filmmaking. And I'll certainly be talking about that when I do the video of that film. So yeah, they are kind of my highlights throughout July. So a bit of a strange mix there, quite a lot of science fiction and action, which are my favorite genres, so why not? So I'll just end on TV series. What is the TV series that I binged? So I'll just quickly throw this in because some of you may find this interesting. But I am a big fan of the series Yellowstone that starred Kevin Costner. And Kevin Costner was in it for, I think it was all the way into the 4th season. And then he got busy making his Horizon Westerns, of which I've got part 1, and I thought was terrific. And part 2 has been finished, but not been released yet, apparently. So for season 5, Kevin Costner was not available. So for those of you that haven't watched Yellowstone, I'm not going to give you spoilers as to why in the series, how they explain why he's not around. But I loved Yellowstone. It's really well made, terrifically written. And it was written by one guy called Taylor Sheridan. And he's done a number of TV series recently. He's a very busy guy. And he's done one called Landman, which is the series I want to quickly talk about. It stars Billy Bob Thornton. And it's based around a Texas oil company and all the problems that they go through in trying to run this oil company and keep all the pumps going. And it's, as I say, mainly about Billy Bob Thornton. He's the actual landman who's sort of the vice president of the company, and he's the boots on the ground that make sure that the pumps are working properly and that the employees are doing what they're supposed to do. And to add to the drama, he has a real kind of man-eater of an ex-wife who comes back into his life. And he has a real sex bomb of a daughter who he's having difficulty controlling. And there's all these various things going on in his life that make it very exciting. And it's just a very well written and interesting series. And it has that, I'll just watch one more episode to it. But we didn't binge it. We tried to limit ourselves to just one episode per night because my other half was watching it as well and she was really getting into it. And when we got to the final 10th episode, which was like an extra long episode, I think that was about an hour and 20 minutes, it was terrific. And we just thought, oh, that was great. That was really, really good. And I hear that they're currently filming the second season as I'm recording this video. So hopefully that will be out before the end of the year. But I really recommend it. If you've got access to streaming it, it's on Paramount Plus. And I think you can also view it in Amazon Prime if you have that. But it's just a damn good series and I highly recommend it. So thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already seen my previous 2 videos, please do check them out. I did a video about the film Falling Down with Michael Douglas. That was very different to the videos I normally do, in that my face isn't shown in that video. I just used a hell of a lot of clips of the movie. And then previous to that, I did my Terminator movie marathon where I watched all 6 Terminator films in one night that I really enjoyed doing. And I was a little bit disappointed when it went live and it didn't seem to get very many views. I really thought that video would get more views than it did, which was really sad because I really enjoyed making that video. But that's YouTube for you. You never really know which videos take off and which ones don't. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, give me a thumbs up. And I'll continue to do these what I've been watching every month if you feel that you want to see them. And I'll see you very, very soon. So bye for now.